This podcast is certified fresh. Freshmediaworks.com.
Looking to boost your company's marketing? Look no further than Fresh MediaWorks. Podcasting is the best way to promote your brand and increase your customer base. You can create your own show, be a guest on other podcasts, or advertise on existing podcasts to reach a valuable audience. Don't wait. Start elevating your marketing game today with Fresh MediaWorks. Call now, 713-269-4620, or find us online at freshmediaworks.com/podcasting.
Welcome back for another great episode of Master Coaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz. I'm Bob Bertucci, joined here by fellow Master Coaches Mick Haley, Tom Hilbert, and Jim Stone. Our first guest today is Todd Dagenais, head coach for the Atlanta Vibe. And we're excited to have Todd on to talk a little bit about his team, the tournament, the PVF championship. All right, and other things that we might bring up about professional volleyball. So, Todd, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I'm going to go ahead and start off the show by throwing it to Mick and asking Mick to. I know, Todd, you're going to enjoy this. He's going to start us off with the first 3 to 8 questions. You know how Mick is.
Yes, looking forward to Mick. Good morning, Mick.
Hi, Todd, and welcome to the show. You've had a pretty good season so far.
You know, Mick, it's been a very rewarding experience taking a group of people together and not so much focusing on talent as much as focusing on chemistry and focusing on a team that really love to play for each other, that really enjoy each other. And it's allowed people to settle into roles. They may or may not be starting. They know what their role is, though. They're ready to go in when they need to go in. They're ready to help us out in the practice gym. And honestly, I don't know that I've ever been a part of a team that is so talented, yet so willing to accept their role because they love the people they're playing with.
How does your team look going into the playoffs?
You know, I think we're looking pretty strong. We'll have a bit of a break from the time we played our last match on May 2nd until we play again on May 15th. You know, I think some people look at that as a down thing. I look at that as an upside. We've played so many matches in such a short amount of time that bodies needed breaks. Mentally, we needed breaks. And I think just coming back to practice yesterday, it was fun. It was exciting. There were a lot of smiles, a lot of happiness. And, you know, it's not like that dreaded late November feeling you get in college. It was really a lot of fun in practice yesterday.
It is the hottest team right now, and who are you most concerned about going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into any team in particular. I think Omaha has been pretty consistent all year long. They have home court advantage. So things are set up for them to do really well. Then, you look at Grand Rapids with Dimitriova back, and she is a terror. I mean, she completely changes the way you block and play defense. And now you've got San Diego last night clinches a spot, and they continue to get better and better as the year goes on. I think the addition of Willow Johnson and the consistency of the middles, and Allie Bastinelli, I thought, is doing a great job blocking and touching a lot of balls when she's in the front row. And it seems that no matter what setter they go with, whether it's Nutsara Tomcom or August Rasky, they're clicking. So there's not one team I'm most concerned about. The one team I'm really most concerned about is the Atlanta Vibe.
So you watched all these teams now. Who's really standing out as possible MVP in the whole league? Who's been consistent the whole year? Who's really the one person you can count on?
Yeah, I think, us coaches, anybody that's voted for all conference or all American, you just never know really how it's going to go. You could make a case for all of the stat leaders in each of the categories. It just depends on the individual voter and what they think they value as most important. I think from Omaha, you could take a look at, there's 3 people on Omaha. There's 2 people on Grand Rapids. There's 2 people on San Diego. And then I think, of course, we have a few candidates as well. So it just really depends on what coaches value. For me, I'm going to value points. I think that's important. And the other thing I'm going to take a look at is I'm going to go through and I'm going to tier each of the positions and try to figure out which player is most outstanding in her position. And then is she more outstanding in her position than maybe somebody is in their position? I want to find the outlier, and whoever the outlier is, that should be the MVP.
Is there a setter that's really making the difference for one of these teams?
No, I think, it's really situational, Mick. It's interesting. If you look at San Diego, they've been bouncing back and forth between Nutsara and August. And I think they both have their role. Nutsara being a very creative and very deceptive setter, and August being a bigger block defensive presence and still able to deliver a nice ball. Ashley Evans done a great job in Grand Rapids getting her players the ball. Again, been in and out, but when they make those switches, it seems to do well for them. And then, of course, Omaha, you've got 2 setters there with Amaris and with Hilly. So I think each team has found what it takes for that team to be successful. And of course, I think Marley has done a fantastic job for us.
So who's been the most dominating middle blocker? They don't score a maximum point number, but they dominate because they jump on every play. And who's been the one that stood out for the whole season that really has dominated?
Boy, that's a loaded question. I think you have to take a look at things like not only kills per set, but then again, you don't want to penalize a middle who's on a very pin-heavy team. I think you have to take a look at blocks per set, but I think that's not a great statistic. This statistic about block touches, positive block touches, they control balls that come up. I think that's a number that really has to be valued. You look at that, you look at Ali Bastinelli, you look at Kaz Brown, you look at Caitlin Horde, you look at Buchkova in Omaha. You look at Magda on our team, and I think, all of them, and I'm sure there's more, who have really done a nice job at that. You just have to sit down and figure out who has done the combination of all the things you need from a middle blocker, not only front row, but serving back row. But points per set are important, but I think block touches are really important. The percentage of block touch that's slowing balls down, something I'm looking at.
Let's shift gears for a second. You're getting ready for the playoffs. Everybody's focused on the end here, but then you're trying to keep players for next year. How many athletes have renewed for next year, and how many athletes have really signed up on your group for next year?
I believe that more than 90% of our athletes have re-signed for next year. In terms of the league, obviously we have to come to agreements and things like that after the season is over as to, where they're going to fill in the contract tiers. But just about everybody is planning on returning to the league next year. Ideally, I'd love to keep as many of our current team as possible, but I know that's also impossible, knowing that there's additional teams coming in that are in home markets of our players.
So it's going to be kind of a difficult situation knowing those new teams are announced, and will you have another draft, or how will this work for next year?
Well, it's going to come down to May 20th. So on May 20th, everybody in the league becomes a free agent. And so you're going to have a whole round of free agency first. And, people say, oh, well, that's not fair. I mean, a team can load up on talent. Well, no, you can't, because you only have one of the highest paid spots. You have two of the next highest paid spots. You have four of the next highest, and then everybody else is at the base salary again. So once those higher salaries get filled, there's going to be players that aren't going to want to necessarily play for the minimum, and they're going to go somewhere else. So I think it's going to be a great way of balancing things out heading into next year, where the better players are getting rewarded with the higher contracts, and there's room for role players to come in and sign with teams, and then we'll have the draft here again. Early December, I think it is this year. And, we'll see if some of those rookies get a chance to make a difference in the league.
So Todd, you have signed some athletes right now, or that's not going to happen until free agency?
Correct. We can't, a franchise can't sign an athlete till after May 20th and beyond. However, we have had, like I said, over 90%. I want to say it's almost everybody, maybe but one that I know of, that has signed with the league. So they've committed to the PVF to play for the PVF. Now they're going to try to work their way to, play for the team that they want to play, or whoever offers them the best contract. I think this is really, I think it's a good idea to get that talent spread out a little bit more. And I think this is a good way of doing it. I look back to the beginning, Bob, where people said, Atlanta just raced out with all this talent, and Grand Rapids raced out with all this talent. Columbus has all this talent, and Omaha has and it didn't work that way, because after the first 6 or 7, all the players that came in the league were trying to figure out what their role was going to be. And so that's how San Diego got good. That's how Vegas got some great players. That's how Orlando got some great players, is because after your first few, you look and see, okay, what's my role? I need to go somewhere where I'm going to have a role. So it was way more, much more parity this year than anybody ever thought it was going to be. I thought the matches were great. I thought the parity was great. And it's going to get even better next year now with a tiered contract idea.
So next year we have League One starting. All right. If I understand you correct, the players have signed or made a commitment to the PVF, 90% of them anyway. So have you lost any of your current players to League One?
No, not one.
Has there been any competition at all for those players, or they're pretty much sold?
I'm sure they came after every one of our impact players and starters, and I'll wait for that. There we go. League One has been very assertive in going out and trying to acquire talent, and I'm sure they'll have some players from the PVF. But I think it's up to each individual, what their thoughts are. And at least our franchise, that's all I can talk about, really. Our franchise is committed to this league. And we're committed to making this league continue. And we're committed to this league for years, not just one.
Well, the PVF has announced 3 new teams for next season. You alluded to some new teams starting. Has the PVF announced coaches for these new franchises yet? And who do you think might be viable candidates?
That's a good question. And honestly, Bob, I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention. I've been so hyper-focused on what we're trying to do, and it's so mentally encompassing. Just looking forward to Kansas City, Dallas, and Indianapolis coming in. I think it's great. 3 great volleyball areas. I think they're going to pack the fans in, and I think they're going to be exciting places to play. In terms of coaches, I can't say that I'm on the inner loop on that. So I don't know. It may have happened. I don't know. I know there's announcements that, are coming out, but I think like anything else with any professional sports league or any business, you want to leak out your name and your coach at the right time. And I think in the middle of a final stretch where teams are trying to make the playoffs, that's not maximum PR bang for the buck. So they're going to wait for the right time to be able to announce what they have. The last 2 weeks of the regular season is not the time to do that, because the focus is on the playoff run.
Sure.
Hey, Todd, this is Jim, and I'm going to go off script just a little bit. I just want to follow up. I'm trying to wrap my head around, why would a player commit to the league when they have no idea what salary level they're going to fit into. That makes no sense to me. Why would they do that when, maybe they have other options at other places like League One? I don't understand.
Well, hold on, but let me stop you right there. So
Okay.
you told me that your question was, why would you sign on to something that you don't know where you're going to fit and all that kind of stuff?
Right.
League One has the same issue. It's no different between the two, and I think they'll work their way through it just like we did. But a player that's signing up for PVF, has a general idea of where they're going to fit. And a player signing up for League One has their own questions about League One. So, all I can tell you is, League One is off to a start, and now we have 1 year underneath our belt. We've made the mistakes, we've learned from them, and all those things get put into next year. So I think if you look at the PVF, I'm just going to talk about the PVF. If you look at the PVF, it's a much more known entity right now because we have 1 year under our belt. And we have the experience of that 1 year to know what needs to be changed immediately and what needs to be changed for the future. So true, players might be signing up for something that they don't know, but there's other options where they may not know even more. What I will tell you is in common with everybody that's signing up in both leagues, they want to play in the United States. They're committed to playing in the United States, growing volleyball in the United States, and trying to make the U.S. pro volleyball scene much more closer every year to being on par with the Italy, Turkey scene.
Okay. Well, fair enough. I'll move on. I'll get back on script here.
No, you're fine.
Can you comment on the travel for all the teams, not just Atlanta? Was it problematic this year? Are there discussions where how can we improve the travel? I saw yesterday where the WNBA is now chartering all their flights, which is okay, great. Has it been a problem for various franchises this year? And what suggestions might you have to streamline the process and make it a little bit more positive for the players?
Yeah, really, that's out of my pay grade. Has there been some challenges this year? Absolutely. We tried to pack 24 matches in a 4-month time period. That in itself inherently leads to issues and travel issues. On top of that, when it came to picking dates in arenas, we were the last pick behind 2 other professional teams. And so that leads to some weird days, arena availabilities. And so it did lead to some challenges. But again, those are all first-year things that we knew were going to happen. Now, next year, we're already solidifying dates in the arena, whereas last year we didn't get to do that until August or September. So that's going to change things itself. Secondly, with adding 3 teams, I think it allows other possible scheduling models. Instead of playing each team 4 times, maybe you're looking at playing each team twice and actually lowering the number of matches a little bit and spreading it out a little bit more. So there's a lot of things out there that, again, are so far above where I'm thinking right now. But I think the added number of teams, you play those teams less. For example, if it's a 10-team league this year, you're going to have 18 matches if you play everybody twice. Maybe they do some sort of a mid-season tournament or something like that to get up to 20 or 22. But it's going to be much more spread out. It's not going to be like you're going to be playing San Diego on a Friday and then have to go to Orlando on a Sunday or Monday. That happened this year. And so, but it was out of necessity. It wasn't out of incompetence. It was just, that's what we got. We just had to have a league this year. And I think, more than anything else, I'm proud of the league. I'm proud of the coaches going, okay, not ideal, but we got a product on the floor. We almost have a full year with a product on the floor.
Yeah, and you hear of the old NBA stories where teams were flying commercial, just like you guys did this year. So it's certainly not out of the realm of pro sports to to fly commercial and have some travel challenges. But last question, and again, this is probably not 100% on your radar. Are there any rule changes being discussed for next year?
I don't know of any rule changes to be discussed. I'm sure there'll be a coaches and a GM and owner meeting at the end of all this to see if anything needs to be discussed. Honestly, just, flipping off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that needs to be changed except for, there was something I thought. Oh, I the one rule I'd like to see changed is that a touch in the backcourt can actually be called. Right now, if you challenge a touch, you can only challenge a touch at the net. You can't challenge that it grazed off the shoulder of the back row player. And so I think that's something that we've all noticed is a mistake. And when it was originally drawn up and written, that part was omitted. So I'd like to see that added next year, and I think it will. I think that's a universal thing. But in terms of number of subs, I like 8. It allows us to play a few more players, but not completely platoon front row and back row. So I think you'll probably still see 8, but it could always go and match up internationally and go 6. But I don't know if there's any appetite to change that right now. But no, I don't. I think our mini modified FIVB rules have worked out really well.
Hey, Todd, Tom Hilbert.
Hey, Tom.
This another question may be beyond what your pay grade is, but what's going to happen with TV? That to a lot of us, it was a little bit disappointing this year that we couldn't get linear TV of PVF stuff until late in the season. What do you think the future is, and how are we going to solve that problem?
Well, remember, CBS Sports is pretty committed to the NCAA basketball league. And so it was great for us to even join them, even if it was late. I still see the future of sports broadcasting is going to be internet based somehow. It's going to be streamed. And I'm not involved in those work. I'm not involved in the contracts of how those things work. But I think no matter what you do, no matter what league you're in, you can go to a TV executive and say, well, we're this and we're this and we're this and we're this. But without proof of concept, without proof of viability, no one's going to jump on anything. You and I, as we're TV executives, some league's going to come to us and we're going to say, yeah, but where's the product? I hear the hype, but where's the product? Well, now we have a year under our belt. We have some proof of concept. We have some great crowds. We have exciting athletes. And we've had a lot of 4 and 5 game matches that keep you up for 3 hours. So I think that's much more appealing now to TV executives. And I'm sure the talks are already in the works. I don't know with who. I don't know in what capacity. But I tell you, it's a much hotter product right now than it was in August of last year.
Okay. So just to wrap the whole thing up, what has you most excited going into next year, going into the future of the PVF?
That we made it. We made 1 year. And I think that so many leagues crack to the point where their death is inevitable in that course of that first year. Or they limp out of the first year and they're just hanging on a string for the second year. We had a strong first year. Did we make mistakes? Absolutely. Were we behind the 8 ball on saying some things? Absolutely. But those are all things that are fixable for next year and we're going to learn from. And so the experience of 1 year under our belt is something I'm excited about. More and more American and international players wanting to be in the league is something I'm excited about. The addition of 3 teams shows the health and the growth. And I think just the fan base that we're building up, no matter where we go and play, there's a fan base. People like to criticize, the crowds were low at this place. Take a look at those crowds, and I'll tell you, it was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday that those matches were played. You look at the crowds on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they're great. They're fantastic. So what's the deal we have to do? Let's get more matches on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and get rid of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll be able to do that next year. We didn't get to choose our dates this year. So we've learned. We have a season under our belt. There's a proof of concept already. And it's a talented league, even in its first year, with stars. it's even going to get better next year. And I think it's something that can last long term if we continue to be smart and go slow, act deliberately, address the real issues, and just move forward.
Well, Todd, we all like to thank you for coming on. We know you have a practice that's going to start in about 5 minutes, so we're very conscious of that. We are going to have Jen Spiker on in about 3 weeks, right after the season's over. So we'll have the right pay grade to answer some of these questions that we do want to get answers to. But we really appreciate the fact that you've taken time out of your busy schedule. We wish you the best. The Vibe is in first place. They got it solidly. I'm sure you'd like to know exactly who your fourth place team is right now, but you're going to have to go into practice and just keep working at it, because it'll take a few more matches before you'll know that, right?
Well, you all know I'm a descendant of Mick Haley, and there's 2 Mick Haley rules that I abide by. Rule number 1 is when the NCAA tournament starts, it doesn't matter how hot we are or what our record is. We're 0-0, and we don't care who we play. Just put a team in front of us and let us compete.
All right. Thank you,
Mick?
Todd. Appreciate you being
That's
on
right,
with us.
Todd.
All right. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate your time.
Good luck, Todd.
Thanks.
Good luck.
All right, group. We'll take a little break before we have our next guest on. All right, to hear from our friends and sponsor, S&A Sports Group. Find out a little bit about their best equipment on the market these days.
Let me tell you about the best net system on the market. The Edge is our all-carbon net system. It's the lightest posts on the market at 17 and 22 pounds. And it offers pin stop net height adjustments for juniors, women's, men's, and then 2 inches above each of those. So you can bump the nets up for practice. In order to accommodate different sleeve depths in the floor, we have an adjustable foot on the bottom to make fine-tuning adjustments to make sure those pin stops are accurate. These posts use our Kevlar net with the 4 Velcro tensioners to apply horizontal tension. It provides for stellar accuracy and consistency every single time. One of the nice things is the simple elegance of this post. It's quite a simple design, not a lot of replacement parts. We've tried to give you everything you need and nothing that you don't. So, if the lightest net system on the market appeals to you, we'd love to talk to you more about it.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Laura Bird Kuhn from the Supernovas in Omaha. Laura, it's great to have you on. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, it's great to be back with you guys.
Well, we're going to turn it over to Mick. He's going to start us off with the first couple of questions for you, and then we'll just have a conversation about your team, the PVF, and the championships coming up.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Bird, I'm going to jump right into this because we've got a lot of things going on. You're in the playoffs. You're hosting the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the hot team, and who are you most concerned about?
Obviously, Atlanta's been strong. They've been kind of rolling since the middle of the season. San Diego is right now. I mean, they've made a run. Obviously, we played them pretty much back to back like a week ago now. I lose track of days. But really, everyone's strong. I think the thing that everyone has seen throughout the length of this season, all the teams mesh. You have time to train and play together, and your team builds chemistry. So every opponent, even Grand Rapids, I mean, they're going to be strong.
And has there been one player that's dominated the league? If you think back through the league, somebody that came into the league here and you could throw their name out right away has been one of the most dominating players, who would you throw out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a handful. There's strong players on each team, but Leah Edmond obviously has had a great season. Dimitrova and Temi out in San Diego. I mean, she played well against us almost every match. There's matchups, and obviously when we all watch volleyball, there's matchups between each team, and some players just can take advantage of certain tendencies of teams defensively. But yeah, I mean, there's a handful, if not 5 to 10 players that could take over any match at any point in this league.
How about in the leadership category with setters? Is there a setter that has really taken her team to the place where they can get in the playoffs? Is there somebody that sticks out there for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom found her rhythm in San Diego. Obviously, Atlanta, they kind of figured out their setting situation there, like midway. I would say both of our setters in Omaha are very strong leaders in their own right, and they've both had really great matches, even going back and forth in our system. So, I mean, there's definitely strong setters.
And when we get to middle blockers, they don't get a chance to score as much because of the number of sets, unless you have a really good passing team. But they get block stuffs. We see that. But how about block touches? Who's done the best job, in your opinion, throughout the season in the middle? It's been most consistent, and their team can count on them the best.
I mean, I think that's kind of gone back and forth. I would say, like, even our middles have been kind of hot and cold, and they're two of the best blockers. But the control touches are where it's at. I mean, this game is so much defensive in transition. But I would say Atlanta has strong middles. Watson, obviously, Shelley's been great. They've been consistent for them. But it's been kind of up and down for the other teams, like just switching people in and out. I know Vegas had, they went around, they rolled through their middles there. Molly didn't quite stay healthy, but she was doing well at the beginning for sure. But yeah, I think everyone, even Grand Rapids, they've gone back and forth with a couple of their middles. So everyone's had their chances, but I would say Atlanta's has been the most consistent, and then our two middles have been pretty consistent in their production.
And let me throw one last question to you. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, but how many of the players in the league have committed for next year? I know you're trying to play in the playoffs, but also know there's a time period here where everybody's trying to figure out what they're doing next year. So where is all of that?
It's all in the works right now, because even like international players, everyone's signing their contracts. So I would say we probably have, I don't know the exact number, but there's a master list that the league sends out of everyone that is re-signed with the league, and we're probably halfway, like at least half.
Okay. Bob, back to you.
Bird, with League One starting up next year, all right, you say you have at least half of the people committed. Have you lost any players to League One?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's players that have signed overseas in League One. It's going to be the nature of the beast. It's like that's kind of how the business is. Just like international volleyball, people are signing with their new clubs, and it's just really going to come down to the best opportunity for them. I think it's awesome that we have professional volleyball in the States. So to me, it's great opportunities. It's great for our sport, and it's going to be the nature of the business, just like the international clubs.
So there's been a lot of competition with League One and internationally for your players.
Yep. It's just timing. It really is the timing of it. I mean, I think our season, the layout of this, it is what it is. And so we'll figure that out as we kind of keep going forward.
Okay. Yeah, because when we were talking to Todd just a few minutes ago, he seemed to think that 90% of the players have already re-signed with the league. You think it's more like 50% right now, and there's still a lot of competition for these players.
Yeah, it could be more than 50. I honestly don't look at the list nonstop. I mean, we're talking to the players that we want here, so we're kind of just doing our thing.
Okay. The PVF has announced 3 new teams for next season. How do you think that they're going to fill those coaching positions? You have any idea, who they're looking at, who are viable candidates for these new positions?
Yeah, I know those 3 franchises have talked to a number of coaches, both here in the States and international. I don't know exactly who they are going to hire, but I know it should be announced in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting for the sport. I think there's always be careful of how fast you're growing, how fast everything's moving, but I think that we're in a good place and they're going to hire great people. And again, it's just great opportunities for our sports, both coaches and athletes, to continue to play here in the States.
Hey, Bird, this is Jim. And first of all, congrats on your season and
thank you.
Success in the playoffs. I think it's awesome that the league is, chugging forward and making progress on every front. One thing that seems to have been challenging this year, and it might just be endemic with a first-year professional league were travel challenges and just the logistics behind that. Have the coaches and or the league administrators have had discussed that challenge and any changes in the travel arrangements and or scheduling as you look forward to year number 2?
Yeah, for sure. We're always in a constant dialogue. We have set meetings. And so us as coaches, we talk obviously when we play. We're constantly talking to the league just in terms of how things are running. With the 3 new teams, it's going to be a way different travel schedule, and we'll be ahead of it because of the facilities. So hopefully with the advanced timing, it'll be more like travel partners, kind of cleaning it up, maybe playing less matches and longer playoffs. The committee is talking about a lot of different ways to kind of combat the issues we had this year, and it was a lot of the scheduling with the facilities. But I think that everyone has been resilient, and yes, it's been a grind sometimes, but it's, again, I just keep going back to it's a great opportunity, and it is excelled. And I think the level of play and the atmosphere and all these venues has been awesome. And it's just, again, it's a great opportunity for our athletes, and it's a great just platform and foundation for the sport. So yes, we will continue to get better with all of the logistics and everything moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's easy for people in left field bleachers to, kind of, hey, can't this happen right away? And I think what the PVF has done this year has been fairly awesome. So one other question that I have, and again, it's kind of looking ahead, have the coaches discussed or endorsed any sort of rule changes as you look at year number 2?
Yeah, Devaney's been awesome, our head referee, and she's actually refereed most of our matches. And so there is a constant dialogue on rules and technology and everything we're using. So I don't think there's going to be anything major, but there's always little tweaks here and there. Angel in Columbus, there was something this year with the antennas and just the in and out when the refs can't see it because we don't have line judges. So we've added that challenge, just using the in-house cameras. That kind of happened halfway through the season. So there's little things like that we'll tweak here and there.
I'm going to throw a new one in here because I think it will be of interest to especially the coaches watching.
Okay.
You go from coaching collegiate volleyball for many, many years and watching kids 17 to 21, 22 play. Now you're in this pro arena and space.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned? What have you learned about volleyball that these older, more experienced players have taught you?
The experience. And there are conversations and dialogues that we have that it's way more collaborative, even in the training and the load management. Like, they're a big piece of it. Like, I don't know their bodies as well as they have. They've been training, they've been physically, like, just lifting weights, things like that. So there are some players that do more, some that do less, and they're managing their own loads. But we also have the support around them, and we have all the resources. I think that's been one of the coolest things. And it is the level and the IQ and being able to talk to the team and the players and digest information, and then even the in-match things. In-match adjustments, it's still like keep it simple, but it's also they can play and they see things at such a high level that the dialogue in those huddles is what they're experiencing out there. And so there's really a trust that they know what to do and they know how to make adjustments. And then we're there to help be guardrails and kind of clean things up and what we're seeing. I don't know if the word, not patient, well, yeah, patient for sure, but there's more of a like mellowness because there's urgency in their own communication. And so for us as a staff, we're there to just be sounding boards for them and kind of keep things clean and sharp when they need to hear things.
Got it. All right. So we asked this question to Todd too. What is the future in this league with television? Because I think this year a lot of people were disappointed in not being able to get it on linear TV. And we have a late season thing, but what's going to happen next year? How will that get better?
Yeah, I would imagine based on just how this progressed this year, and I know our TV contract started late, but I think that's going to help push the contract for next year. And it really comes down to the time frame. I know that was the biggest challenge this year is like the dates and the timing of our season with basketball, with football, with all those things. And so I think now that they see the product, they see the viewership, all those things, I think that's going to help to build that contract for next year and hopefully, obviously, the whole season.
Is it going to shift the season from a timing perspective? Will it start earlier or later?
I think we're talking about starting earlier and ending a little later. So like the end of April, but none of that has been set in stone yet. But yes, I think we're talking about maybe starting just like a month or a couple weeks earlier just to get us done sooner.
Awesome. Okay. And then last thing, as we wrap this up, what are you most excited about with regards to the league or your team? You can answer it however you want as we go into the future and next year.
I'm excited for the athletes. I mean, anytime we get on the phone and we talk to either new athletes or players that are coming back from the international leagues and their desire and just like the excitement of playing in the States, it's still there. And there's plenty of opportunities. I know that, but I think just the growth of the sport and the growth of the pro leagues, that's what's most exciting because now there's a product, we have a foundation, and we're just going to keep making it better and better. And I know there's still energy behind all of the athletes that want to come play here. Whether they're Americans or international, like people are excited to come play in the States. And so I think that's the biggest thing for the sport.
Great. Thank you.
Bert, is there anything that you would like to, talk to our viewing audience and listening audience about, your team or the PVF that you really want to get out there and let people know about?
It's been an awesome experience. I know that, there's challenges every time you try to start something new, but for the athletes and the coaches, yes, it's been a grind, but it's also been very rewarding. This group that we have is very resilient, and I love the bonds that they've made and the lengths that we have gone just this season. I mean, Fran and I were talking just out in Vegas. We're like, this has been the shortest, longest season because there's so many moving parts, but it's also so exciting. It's so exciting for the sport. I love talking to the college coaches. They're always asking like, how is it? What do you think? How are you doing? How are you feeling now? Like this part of the season. It's exciting. I think this is somewhat of a dream job even for coaches because it's different. I mean, it's a different level. It's a different way to kind of manage and help players be successful. And it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for our sport and for the athletes. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about the playoffs. I'm excited for the sport of volleyball. And it really is. It's just going to keep growing.
Jim, you have some thoughts for Bird you'd like to ask her about?
Yeah, just one more question. It intrigued me about the load management comment that you made. If you were to put yourself into a scenario of going back into the world of university volleyball, where you have fifth-year seniors that are 23 years old and a skinny freshman that's 17 years old, would you go to your strength coach and have a discussion about, hey, here's what I see in terms of this is what this 23-year-old needs, this is what this 17-year-old needs. I mean, it's been my experience that with the strength coaches, everybody shows up at the same time. Everybody does the same program. So I'm just intrigued if based on your experience this year, would you have that discussion with your strength coach and say, can we modify something for this player and do something different for that player?
I've always been drawn to strength and conditioning. I started lifting at a young age. So I feel like we always created that dynamic and those dialogues within the programs I've been. And so that was kind of naturally happening. What I would know now is I've always thought and believed that strength and conditioning is a huge X factor for athletes. And not only is like the load and making sure it's kind of custom for each player. Like, yes, it can be the same plan, but they're going to have different weights. They're going to have there's going to be different things for each player because of where they're at in their careers. But I would now even more so push that they really buy into the strength and conditioning because these players that have been playing the longest in this league, they lift more than most of the players. Like we'll do 2 lifts a week, but most of our international or most of the older players, they're doing something daily, whether it's rehab, recovery, but they will load to some extent in the weight room and do things fitness wise just to keep themselves healthy. And so that's more of what I've appreciated about this. And it's just working with other players.
maybe I should take a component of that into my own program, doing something every day.
Right? Yeah, daily fitness, people.
So, okay, I just found that that intriguing because I think sometimes, strength coaches kind of get the blinders on and everybody has to do the same thing. So anyway, interesting comment by you.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, would you have any other questions for Bird before we let her go? Because I'm sure she's got plenty of work to do.
No, I think this has been a great show. Thank you, Bird, for everything you've talked about. And you've been quick and thorough with your answers. And, I think people are going to like it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys. I think this is cool. It's a good platform to get information out.
Well, Bird, thanks very much. And good luck with upcoming championships. I know it's still not completely figured out yet who you're going to be playing in the first round, but wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. It should be exciting.
We'll go ahead and transition now into our buzz reaction to hear any other follow-up thoughts or questions. Jim, I thought it was great, the question you were asking, because I was thinking the same thing. It does make sense when you think about you got 17-year-olds and 21, 22-year-olds, yet we'll go into a strength, program, and it's almost like cookie cutter. It almost looks like the football workout all over again. Sometimes you have to talk to the strength coaches, quite a bit and get them, looking at your team differently.
Yeah, for sure. And, within universities, you got some coaches have great situations relative to fitness and strength management and some not as great, but the concept of every player is not the same. So why should the programs be the same is certainly a valid one. And I know some of the people that are watching this are club coaches, coaching 13-year-olds and that can be it's not a priority. I mean, if somebody can't pass, it doesn't matter how strong they are, but it needs to be something that's, to some degree on their radar, to take 5 minutes at the end of the practice and do some core work and do some things that would help that age group out immensely, So, and again, club coaches are, they're stressed for time and they get 2 hours on the court. But to have players come in 15 minutes early or stay 15 minutes afterwards and do some body weight squats or some core work, I think would be time well spent.
I think she also used the term conditioning and believes that is important as well. And there's some pushback on that out there in some of these discussions that you see online. Joe Trinzi of Smarter Volley says conditioning in volleyball does not matter. And I would play them. Yeah, I know. I would like to have him on the show at some point to discuss that. But I do think that, these athletes, and I noticed this when I would go overseas and watch some of my former athletes playing professionally, that they do have their own agenda in the weight room and in conditioning. They do their own thing because they know what's good for them. And in some cases, I saw athletes who we had trained at Colorado State for 4 years. They go overseas and their vertical jump goes up 2.5 inches. And I'm like, how did that happen? And they're like, well, I'm just doing what I think I need to do. And it's happening. So I think we think we're really smart, and sometimes the athletes are smarter than we are. I want to say that, Todd Dagenet did a nice job, but he really was sort of a spokesman, a PR spokesman for the league, I think, through the course of his interview with us. And when he said 90% of the players have signed, there must be some terminology that he's talking about. 90% have indicated that they want to play a second year, perhaps. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to signing these contracts, obviously it hasn't happened yet. And so, I'm sure there's still going to be negotiation with those players, with the PVF, with League One, and with overseas opportunities. There has to be.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Like Jim had said, he had asked the question about, he found it kind of strange that the players would have signed contracts not knowing, what salary level they were going to actually enter into. I think it's more of an agreement that, hey, we want to come back to the league, but we're looking for what the best deal is for us.
Right.
Jim,
Right.
would you agree with that?
Well, I just can't envision a player turning down another opportunity, whether it's with League One, internationally, whatever the opportunity is, when for all they know, there's not a team in the league that wants them. Maybe so they're not going to turn down this option over here, and maybe they legitimately want to stay in the PVF, but if no team wants them, they have to look out what's best for themselves professionally and that type of thing. So I'm sure there's things going on behind the scenes, but I would be stunned, I guess, if 90% of the players have signed a document saying they're going to play for the PVF without any knowledge of what their situation is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated than Todd had presented it, but I think Bird had a little bit more realistic thing. It's very competitive right now. Everybody's checking out what deal they have. Though it sounds like in May they're actually going to have the free agency draft, and teams are going to be letting people know right away what their situation is, and we'll get some people committing to teams. What do you think?
Hey, that's an idea for a show. I mean, Todd mentioned May 20th. Maybe we should get all the coaches on and get live updates.
Yeah, no kidding.
Who's signed and who's gone. Throw League One in there, and let's do like the ESPN on the NFL draft.
Yeah, that would be great.
Well, we will have Jen Spiker on in about 3 weeks, which is just about the 20th. I don't have the calendar in front of me, but that actually it's a little bit after that. So she's going to know by the end of the month when she's on, how many athletes are back. I think at least from the top salary players anyway.
And one of the things, and Jim, you may know the answer to this, is the PVF affiliated with FIVB? So in other words, is an FIVB contract separate and non-binding from a PVF contract, or are they binding with each other?
Ooh, I'm gonna swing and miss on that one. I have no idea. I'm sure there's a relationship with the FIVB, but how contracts are managed, I have no idea.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing.
Yeah, I know for sure that they're in contact with the FIVB on a regular basis, and they coordinate things with them. But in terms of whether the contracts have anything to do with the FIVB, I'm not sure either. But anything else, guys, that you think struck you as interesting, any other comments you'd have on two of our two guests?
Well, I liked both of their positivity and the way they, sold the fact that the PVF is an opportunity for us to have players playing in the United States in front of our fans. And I think that is really very true. And, that I like the way that they presented it. I think that, if this league makes it in a 3-year model, it probably is here to stay.
Yeah, the one thing that I think that both coaches mentioned that I noted was the value that they place on block touches. And so often the box score that people see at the end of a match, it records block stuffs, and yeah, we all love that stuff, but so to speak. But the block touches that are easily defended in the back row are of special value. And I think sometimes coaches at all levels, they don't value those plays by the blockers enough. And kudos for both coaches for mentioning that. I mean, blocking is one of those skills that you could do everything right and still not block the ball. But if somebody behind you plays it, then arguably you did your job as a blocker, So I thought that was interesting that both coaches mentioned how they value block touches.
I think, Jim, at the highest levels, at the top professional levels where these coaches are coaching right now, it's a situation where the hitters are so skilled and they're hitting the ball at such a velocity that, if you don't touch the ball, your chances of being able to play it defensively, diminish greatly. So I think that's another reason why they're so focused on block touches, because they know that's the chance that we're going to really have to transition out and be able to attack and score a point.
Yeah, and I know, boy, there's a long list of people that are more adept at interpreting statistics than I am. But like I said, we tend to value just, did they stuff block the ball, and boy, to just slow it down and allow the ball to be played by some other teammate is arguably as important as stuffing it. Well, not as important, but it's in the same zip code as
And there, Data Volley when you had a good coder, you would have that stat, and it always that correlated very closely with defensive hitting percentage. So,
Sure.
Which it should.
Well, I think that's a good spot for us to end it on, because for the coaches that are watching, that little tidbit that you brought up, Jim, I think is going to help all of them next time they go into the gym. So we'd like to thank our master coaches for delving into the topics that we did today, as well as our guests. Special thanks to both Todd and Bird for coming on, especially at such a critical time in their season. So we're going to sign off for today, and welcome back next week when we actually have the master coaches on, just talking about volleyball, all right, skills, techniques, and trends that are happening in the game.